सो आज के टॉपिक है पोस्ट इंडिपेंडेंस। ठीक है, पोस्ट इंडिपेंडेंस मेंस का कोर्स है, तो मेंस में एक क्वेश्चन पोस्ट इंडिपेंडेंस से आता है। द थिंग इज पोस्ट इंडिपेंडेंस का जो कोर्स है इसमें आपको कुछ हल्का सा फैक्ट्स याद करने हैं, एरा वाइज याद करने, किसके एरा पे क्या क्या ऐसा हुआ था, सम फैक्ट्स। ओके, मेंस आंसर राइटिंग के लिए ज़रूरी है। सो जस्ट यू नीड टू रिमेंबर द फैक्ट्स, वन लाइनर पे याद करना है। इसे बुक्स में आपको बहुत कुछ ज़्यादा मिलेंगे, बट आपको वन लाइनर्स पे याद करना है कि ये चीज़ हुआ था, एग्रीकल्चर में ये हुआ था, पॉलिटिकली ये हुआ था, वॉर हुए थे, ठीक है, ग्रीन रिवॉल्यूशन हुआ था, इमरजेंसी हुई थी। तो कौन कौन सा फेज में क्या हुआ था वो आपको लिखना है। ओके, और क्वेश्चन ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा जो क्वेश्चन आएंगे इट विल बी इन सिंगल हैंडेड क्वेश्चंस नहीं आएंगे। अगर भी सिंगल हैंडेड क्वेश्चंस आएंगे सो इट विल बी बेसिकली ऑन टोटल रिवॉल्यूशन, जो कि मॉडर्न हिस्ट्री में हमने कवर किया था जेपी नारायण का। तो टोटल रिवॉल्यूशन को एक साथ सिंगल हैंडेड क्वेश्चन आ सकता है, लेकिन ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा चांसेस है कि एक फुल फ्लेजेड पोस्ट इंडिपेंडेंस के बारे में पूछ सकता है। ओके, ठीक है, तो वी कैन स्टार्ट नाउ। सी, पोस्ट इंडिपेंडेंस आफ्टर 1947 इंडिया was totally de-industrialized after facing 200 years of British rule. So what all incidents happened to change India? Okay, एंड जो खास करके जो इंडिया का जो पीरियड है 1947 से लेके 1991 तक बहुत ही ज़्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट है। 1947 से लेके 1991, दैट इज वन ऑफ द मोस्ट प्राइम फेज, बिकॉज हियर द थिंग्स, द चेंजेस विल हैपन। एलपीजी रिफॉर्म्स होगा, खास करके जो इकोनॉमी चेंजेस होगा, सर्विसेज सेक्टर विल कम। सो फ्रॉम दैट टिल नाउ मोस्ट ऑफ द थिंग्स वी आर स्टडीड इन इकोनॉमी, बट स्टिल देन आई टेल यू, आज के क्लास में भी मैं बता दूंगा कि क्या क्या पॉइंटर्स है, आपको कहाँ पे यूज करना है। ओके, सो द अटेनमेंट ऑफ इंडिपेंडेंस was no isolated event, but had sparked of a new process of decolonialization all over the world. So 1947 के बाद mostly it is after World War II. So after World War II, the process of decolonialization started, and the organization which took a forward thing, they started taking this initiative of decolonialization was United Nations. Okay, so the leaders of young India now face the tremendous challenge of establishing a strong nation and setting up an example before the rest of the world. Okay, so now the challenge is how to establish a strong nation. Thus, in this part, we shall learn about the post-independence challenges. What are the challenges? So, question direct आएगा कि challenges क्या था, administrative challenges क्या था, political challenges क्या था, okay, socio-economic challenges क्या था. So, you have to write. Point wise आपको याद करना है. Okay. फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल नेहरू एरा स्टार्ट हुआ 1947 से लेकर 1964. विल गो एरा वाइज विल बी कवरिंग, एंड विल बी साइड बाय साइड विल बी कवरिंग द चैलेंजेस. सो नेहरू एरा इज 1947 to 1964. So at the stroke of midnight, 14th-15th August, India became independent. A special session of the Constituent Assembly was held at that night, chaired by President Rajendra Prasad. Okay, Jawaharlal Nehru, the first Prime Minister of India, addressed the assembly and gave his famous Tirys to the Destiny speech. On the morning of 15th August, free India woke up to the dual reality of independence and partition. The year 1947 witnessed unprecedented violence associated with partition and trauma of displacement. Displacement both हुआ था, partition हुआ था, okay, communal riots हुए थे. So it was in this backdrop that India embarked upon its post-independence journey. So the journey started with this backdrop, and the backdrop was not so peaceful. ठीक है, सब कुछ रेडी होके नहीं था. So उस चैलेंज को पार करके एक पोस्ट इंडिपेंडेंस जर्नी जब स्टार्ट हुआ तो इट वाज वेरी मच डिफिकल्ट. सो यू हैव टू राइट द इश्यूज. व्हाट वाज द, दिस इज वन ऑफ द इशू कि ब्रिटिश कॉलोनियलाइजेशन ऑफ लास्ट 200 इयर्स, कम्युनल राइट्स. सो बेसिक इशू तो यही था. सी, इट वाज नॉट अ बेड ऑफ रोजेस, प्रॉब्लम बहुत था. तो अगेन और जो प्रॉब्लम्स आए वो हम लिखेंगे. ठीक है, सो ये आप इंट्रोडक्शन में यू कैन पुट दिस एज एन इंट्रोडक्शन कि बैकड्रॉप बहुत ही मुश्किल था. Okay, now coming to the challenges. So these are the challenges. So 2 to 3 kinds of question क्या कम. Overall challenges अगर आएगा question तो आप कुछ भी यहाँ से लिख सकते हो points लेके. अगर अलग अलग question आएगा कि how, what was the challenges of consolidating India as a nation, so you have to write these are the challenges. What are the challenges for establishing a democratic polity? For that you have to write fundamental rights, DPSP, all those stuff came into our constitution. Again, what are the challenges of socio-economic development? Because social inequality was there, poor people were there, poverty was all over the country. Okay, so one by one we'll go. One is the challenge one, consolidating India as a nation. So challenge one is consolidating India as a nation. So here one introduction you can give India. The first and foremost challenge that India faced immediately after independence was to weld India into one nation. Yet accommodated the diversity in our society. हमारा country पे diversity बहुत है. Okay, different kinds of religion, different kinds of sect, different kinds of communities are there. But yet we have to bring them into one nation. That was the biggest challenge. Okay, so that we also preserve our diversity. India is a land of continental size and mind-boggling diversity. The partition of country appeared to prove everyone's worst fears. Serious questions were raised regarding India's future. Would India even survive as one nation? Would it mean rejecting all subnational identities? Because बहुत सारे identities इंडिया में हैं. How was the integration of the territory of Indian to be achieved? ये अचीव कैसे होगा? देखो आज हम जब सोच रहे हैं सब कुछ सही हो गया, but at that point of time it was a very huge task for the political party or for the people who are in power. In fact, in the wake of partition and communal riots, many observers had predicted growing disunity and even disintegration of India. Because हमारा शुरुआती पार्टीशन जब हुआ था कम्युनल राइट से हुआ था. कम्युनल राइट इज नथिंग बट इट्स अ वेरी डिविजिव थिंग. इट इज नॉट प्रोग्रेसिव, इट इज रिग्रेसिव. So obviously everyone will think, okay, we are leading towards disunity or even disintegration of India, but that did not happen. So in a way we are hugely successful. So how we managed it, this chapter is based on that, how we managed it. The need of the hour thus was to first respond to the challenge of participation and displacement, because a lot of displacement was happening, and then secure the unity of the nation by tackling the major areas of diversity that produced conflicts, which included the diverse Indian states, Indian languages, and Indian tribes. First of all, what the country did is, the political party did is to address the partition and the displacement problem. Then we can go to tackling of major areas of diversity where the demand was coming. Okay, fine. So in this consolidating India as a nation, so the main problem first was obviously when partition was happening. So first problem was displacement, that is rehabilitation of refugees. That is the first problem. Without that you can't come and talk about diversity. First we have to rehabilitate the refugees, because that was a huge problem at that point of time. So rehabilitation of refugees. Freedom came with partition, which is one of the largest, most abrupt and unplanned unplanned transfer of population in human history, resulting in large-scale violence and displacement of lakhs of people. Besides administrative and financial concerns, the partition posed another deep concern. It challenges the very idea of secular India. It challenged that particular thing of secular India. Even after partition, Muslims accounted for 12% of the total population in 1951. How was the government of India going to treat its Muslim citizens and other religious minorities? When you are talking about secular and you have only 12% as Muslims, so it's challenging that idea, right? It's challenging the philosophy behind secularism, okay, the core philosophy behind secularism. So that was a challenge, how to treat them so that they do not feel inferior, how to treat them, the जितना भी minorities है. So Indian leaders remained firm in their belief in secularism, and the ideal was enshrined in the constitution. एक बार आप कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में आइडियल मेंशन कर लोगे तो कहीं ना कहीं लोगों में वो चीज आ जाती है कि ओके फाइन, द गवर्नमेंट इज डूइंग, एंड कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन को सब मानते हैं. ओके, सेकंड, integration of princely states. Princely states were there. Princely states was a concept of modern India. Okay, so how to integrate them? So at last, what happened is, at last hour, it was announced with the end of British rule in India, the British paramountcy over princely states would also lapse, and the states would become independent entities. तो उनको एक चांस दिया गया था, you can remain independent or you can integrate with your country. So the British government took the view that all these states, 565 in all, would be free to join either India or Pakistan or remain independent if they wished to. So this decision was left not to the people but to the ruler of the states. So that was also a negative thing. So while going also, British, they just like they did not do it in a very nice way, everything good. थोड़ा बहुत वो प्रॉब्लम करके गए थे. उन्होंने वही चीज़ हो जो इंटीग्रेशन प्रॉब्लम पहले से अगर रूल पे ले आते कि नहीं एवरीवन हैव टू जॉइन ईदर पाकिस्तान और इंडिया, सो ये जो पॉइंट है ना टू रिमेन इंडिपेंडेंट, दैट बिकेम अ प्रॉब्लम एट दैट पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम. Okay, so and the decision was also not left to the people, it was left to the rulers, so that was again a problem. Clearly the position of princely states was a matter of grave concern and could threaten the very idea of a united India. सो यहाँ पे भी आप डिसीजन जब एग्जाम पे लिखोगे, जो एक जो रीजनिंग दोगे अगर ऐसा क्वेश्चन आ गया, तो आप लिखोगे कि ये जो ब्रिटिश रूल करके गए थे दे डिड नॉट ऑल्सो गिव इम्पोर्टेंस टू डेमोक्रेसी. उन्होंने पूरा जो मतलब जो डिसीजन है वो पूरा रूलर के ऊपर डाल रहे हैं. दे आर गिविंग द डिसीजन टू द रूलर्स ऑफ दैट प्रिंस स्टेट्स. दैट इज ऑल्सो अ बिग प्रॉब्लम एंड दैट क्रिएटेड अ वेरी प्रॉब्लम फॉर द पॉलिटिकल पार्टी इन पावर, फॉर द कांग्रेस टू इंटीग्रेट देम. Soon enough, the ruler of Travancore announced that the state had decided to remain independent. तो सडनली जब ऐसा हो गया तो फर्स्ट रूलर ऑफ ट्रावेंकोर बोल दिया कि वी विल रिमेन इंडिपेंडेंट. सो उनको देख के बाकी के जो प्रिंसली स्टेट्स थे वो भी बोले. सो द सिमिलर अनाउंसमेंट वाज मेड बाय निजाम ऑफ हैदराबाद द नेक्स्ट डे. So the interim government took a firm view against the possible division of India into a number of small principalities. तो गवर्नमेंट जो इंटरिम गवर्नमेंट चल रहा था उस टाइम पे उन्होंने क्लियर कट बोल दिया कि नो वी विल बी हैविंग इंटीग्रेशन, नो डिवीजन ऑफ इंडिया. At this juncture, Sardar Patel, who was India's deputy prime minister and home minister, played a historic role and successfully negotiated the accession of most of the princely states of the Indian Union. तो negotiate करके the policy of negotiation, तो उन्होंने negotiation से सॉल्व किया मोस्ट ऑफ द प्रिंसली स्टेट्स को. लेकिन हाउएवर द एक्सेशन ऑफ हैदराबाद, जूनागढ़, कश्मीर एंड मणिपुर वाज मोर डिफिकल्ट देन द रेस्ट. कश्मीर साइंड एन इंस्ट्रूमेंट ऑफ एक्सेशन ऑन 26 अक्टूबर 1947, जूनागढ़ एंड हैदराबाद इन 1948, मणिपुर इन 1949. ठीक है, तो क्रोनोलॉजी अगर आएगा तो पहले कश्मीर, फिर जूनागढ़ हैदराबाद, फिर मणिपुर. ओके फाइन. तो ये प्रॉब्लम सॉल्व हुआ. देन अनदर प्रॉब्लम वाज द चैलेंज ऑफ लिंग्विस्टिक डाइवर्सिटी. एक लैंग्वेज का भी प्रॉब्लम हो रहा था. ओके, सो लैंग्वेज का दो किस्म का प्रॉब्लम हो रहा था. फर्स्ट इज कल्चर, खास करके जो तमिलनाडु, आंध्र प्रदेश, कर्नाटका, अलग अलग different states, demand of different states based on language. That is one, that is the second issue. First issue is what should be the official language, because we have so much diversity, what will be the official language? So the issue of national and official language was a major issue at that point of time. Two issues you have to write under the linguistic diversity challenge. One is the language issue of the national and official language. One is the demand for states based on language. Both are different things. Okay, so one is the issue of, so one line you can write here ki for the first 20 years after independence, the linguistic diversity of India emerged as the most divisive issue. See, now we do not have an issue of linguistic diversity, not okay small areas mein hoga regionalism based, but not in that intensity. तब बहुत इंटेंसिटी बहुत ज़्यादा था. द इशू वाज मच बिगर एंड इट वाज वेरी डिविजिव. ठीक है, तो फर्स्ट वन इज इशू ऑफ नेशनल एंड ऑफिशियल लैंग्वेज. दस द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन ऑफ इंडिया रिकॉग्नाइज्ड 22 मेजर लैंग्वेजेस इंक्लूडिंग इंग्लिश एंड संस्कृत. The issue of national language was resolved when the constitution makers accepted not one but all major languages of India as India's national languages. ठीक है, इंडिया का कोई नेशनल लैंग्वेज है नहीं. वी डू नॉट हैव अ नेशनल लैंग्वेज, राइट? सो ऑल मेजर लैंग्वेजेस ऑफ इंडिया एज इंडियाज नेशनल लैंग्वेजेस. हाउएवर द क्वेश्चन ऑफ ऑफिशियल लैंग्वेज, that is for all India communication and for the chief contenders, and for which the chief contenders were Hindi, Hindustani and English. And these official language kya hoga, it became highly politicized and was closely debated in the Constituent Assembly. Both Gandhi and Nehru supported the Hindustani written in Devanagari or the Urdu script. Both Gandhi and Jawaharlal Nehru supported maybe Hindustani on Devanagari script or the Urdu script, but the supporters of Hindi in Devanagari script gained strength once partition was announced, as the votaries of Pakistan had claimed Urdu as the language of the Muslims and of Pakistan. तो उस हिसाब से सपोर्ट ज़्यादा हिंदी को मिला, in favor of Hindi against that Hindustani. So at the end, the decision went in favor of Hindi against Hindustani by 78 to 77 votes in the Congress Legislative Party. So you do not need to write these 78, 77 votes. Just you have to write the crux in 1 to 2 lines. This was the issue. Language का issue हुआ था. Gandhi and Nehru supported both, but finally हिंदी इन देवनागरी स्क्रिप्ट को ज़्यादा सपोर्ट मिला. ओके, सो द इशू ऑफ नेशनल एंड ऑफिशियल लैंग्वेज. फिर कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में आया, पॉलिटी बुक में हमने पढ़ा भी है. दस द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन प्रोवाइडेड दैट हिंदी बीइंग द लैंग्वेज ऑफ द लार्जेस्ट नंबर दो नॉट ऑफ द मेजोरिटी इन देवनागरी स्क्रिप्ट with international numerals would be India's official language even as use of English was to continue for official purposes till 1965. तो 1965 15 साल तक दोनों चलेंगे. ओके, फिर when it would be replaced by हिंदी. फिर पार्लियामेंट को पावर दिया गया, इट कुड एक्सटेंड दिस पीरियड. पार्लियामेंट कुड आल्सो एक्सटेंड दिस पीरियड बियॉन्ड 1965 फॉर स्पेसिफाइड पर्पसेस. सो द डिसीजन रिगार्डिंग ऑफिशियल लैंग्वेज ऑफ द स्टेट्स वाज लेफ्ट टू द स्टेट लेजिस्लेचर. जो स्टेट का जो ऑफिशियल लैंग्वेज होगा, तेलुगु हो गया, तमिल हो गया, कन्नड़ होगा, इट विल बी द पावर इज गिवन टू द स्टेट लेजिस्लेचर. तो कहीं ना कहीं यहाँ पे भी फेडरलिज्म की एस्पेक्ट को प्रिजर्व कर रहे हैं. वी आर प्रिजर्विंग द प्रिजर्व द फेडरलिज्म एस्पेक्ट बिकॉज दे गेव द पावर टू द स्टेट लेजिस्लेचर. ओके. In 1967, the government of India took another important decision on language question and declared that the Indian languages would ultimately become the medium of instruction at the university level. Though the time frame for such a changeover was left up to the convenience of each university. तो यूनिवर्सिटी के ऊपर थोड़ा बहुत पावर दिया गया कि डिपेंडिंग द मीडियम ऑफ इंस्ट्रक्शन इंडियन लैंग्वेजेस को आप यूनिवर्सिटी लेवल पे कर सकते हो. फिर फाइनली 1967 से 1967 the language problem has largely disappeared from the Indian political scene, demonstrating India's capability to deal with contentious issues in a democratic manner, promoting national consolidation. Now, why this problem got solved? How they solved it? They solved it by here. Parliament can extend, and mostly they gave this. This is the main thing. The decision regarding official languages was left to the state legislature. So once you give autonomy to the state legislature, most of the problems gets solved. So federalism is very much important. So this is an example of federalism. So from 1967 we till now also there is not a big language problem now. Like in a political sense, it's not a big problem. Yes, debates used to happen, but not in a political big political scenario. Okay, so language problem got solved. Second, again another issue was on linguistic reorganization of states. You have to use these words: issue of reorganization of states based on linguistic basis, and another is issue of official language and national language. Under the British, the provinces had been formed in a haphazard manner, right, as and when they were conquered. After independence, the need was felt for a reorganization of states, and a strong case was presented for linguistic states. Q. Why? Because firstly, language is closely associated with culture and customs of people. Language is not closely, it is totally associated with the culture and the customs of the people. Secondly, it is a medium of communication, education, administration, judicial activities, as well as politics. Anything you do, maybe it's an administrative, maybe it's a judicial, or be it a politics, be it education, be it communication, you need a language, right? And obviously it is, and language is closely associated to your culture. So that was also kind of a divisive, you can say. So that issue came, demand came, we need different states based on language. Okay, so how could a language play this role in a multilingual province? This was a question. Clearly it could not. For this reason, the Congress had reorganized its regional branches along linguistic lines since 1921. After 1920, if you remember, 1920 नागपुर सेशन के बाद the Congress थोड़ा बहुत decentralization किया था. Regional offices they have created in provinces. If you have gone through modern history in a nice way. So from that time they had already started the working on linguistic basis, and had committed itself towards redrawing of state boundaries on linguistic basis. So things were started, but after independence you have to do it in a very different way, right? So however, after independence, coming independently after the Second World War, and that too along with partition, created serious socio-economic and administrative challenges. A lot of challenges were there and changed the priorities of national leadership. While still committed to linguistic reorganization, the leaders felt that most important task was preservation of national unity, and other things could wait for time. So Here, no need to write in detail. You have nobody will ask you, okay, give the recommendations of Dhar Commission. Nobody will ask you in exam. So you have to remember the names. So a commission came, that is Dhar Commission in 1948. Then JVP committee came. These all are mentioned in our Lakshmikant first chapter or second chapter. JVP committee. Then this Andhra issue, Andhra Pradesh. So fast unto death by Poti Sri Ramalu, जो बहुत ही famous थे. He was a Gandhian. Okay, he sat on a fast unto death, demanding separate state of Andhra. Or after 58, and died also after 58 days of fasting. सो आंध्र प्रदेश आ गया. सो फॉर्मेशन ऑफ आंध्रा हुआ 1953 में. ओके, देन फाइनली एक फजल अली कमीशन, फजल अली, के एम पानीकर एंड हृदयनाथ कुंद्रू, इन्होंने एक कमिटी बिठाई एंड इट वाज अपॉइंटेड बाय नेहरू. नेहरू ने बिठाई एंड द नेम वाज स्टेट्स रीऑर्गेनाइजेशन कमीशन. तो फाइनली रिपोर्ट दिया, फाइनली बाउंड्रीज हुआ एंड द एक्ट वाज पास्ड, स्टेट्स रीऑर्गेनाइजेशन एक्ट. आफ्टर दिस लॉट ऑफ स्टेट्स डिमांडेड एंड ऑल्सो डिवीजन हुआ, अलग अलग स्टेट्स हो गए, आसाम से लेके महाराष्ट्र, गुजरात, सब हो गए. ओके, बेस्ड ऑन लिंग्विस्टिक बेसिस. फाइन. सो टू थिंग्स यू हैव टू राइट. लिंग्विस्टिक में मेंस में आपको दो चीज लिखना है. एक है, most of the people will write only reorganization of states. No, you have to write 2 points. One is reorganization of states. आप पॉइंट्स के ऊपर ध्यान दीजिए. तो यहाँ पे एक्सप्लेनेशन ज्यादा मायने नहीं रखता, आपको बुलेट पॉइंट्स में लिखना है. लिंग्विस्टिक में जब आप प्रॉब्लम लिखोगे, इनिशियल प्रॉब्लम लिंग्विस्टिक का क्या था? वन इज नेशनल लैंग्वेज का प्रॉब्लम. व्हाट विल बी द नेशनल लैंग्वेज और द ऑफिशियल लैंग्वेज. ठीक है, वो कैसे सॉल्व हुआ मैंने अभी बता दिया. सेकेंड was the reorganization of states based on linguistic basis. वो कैसे सॉल्व हुआ? यहाँ से सॉल्व हुआ. ओके, कमिटी का नाम दे दोगे, द स्टेट्स रीऑर्गेनाइजेशन कमिटी बाय फजल अली, के एम पानीकर, हृदयनाथ कुंजू. नो नीड टू राइट दिस ऑल्सो. यू कैन राइट दिस and you can write this. Okay, because the final commission which was the report accepted was this commission, so you can give the name of this commission. Okay, fine. सो दीज, जैसे कि हमने एक क्वेश्चन रिसेंटली किया था कि मेंस में किया था कि व्हाट आर द इश्यूज ऑफ इंटीग्रेशन ऑफ स्टेट्स पोस्ट इंडिपेंडेंस, एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव इश्यूज, यही सब इश्यूज है, ये सब आपको लिखना पड़ेगा वहां पे. ओके, फाइन. नेक्स्ट. सो in this way, the formation of linguistic states did not disintegrate the country as feared earlier. It was feared that it will disintegrate the country because we are dividing on the basis of language, and on one side you are talking about unity and one side you are dividing based on language. That was a fear, but that did not happen. On the contrary, it strengthened national unity and democracy. Okay, fine. Another issue was there, integration of tribals. See, these are challenge number 1 going on. Okay, we'll come to challenge number 2 and challenge number 3. So now is another issue is integration of tribals, because India में बहुत सारे tribals थे. So integrating them into the mainstream was also a huge challenge. Even that challenge is now also there. Yes, relatively less हो गया है, but at that point of time it is a huge challenge. So tribals are the ancient inhabitants of a region, hence called Adivasis. The tribal population is spread all over the country with significant concentration in the northeast. जहाँ पे वो मेजोरिटी पे मध्य प्रदेश, बिहार, उड़ीसा, वेस्ट बंगाल, महाराष्ट्र, गुजरात, उस बेल्ट में जो मिड सेंट्रल इंडिया, थोड़ा ईस्ट एंड नॉर्थ ईस्ट, उसमें ज़्यादा है. ठीक है, इवन राजस्थान टू सम एक्सटेंट भी है. सो द ट्राइबल्स हैड लिव्ड इन रिलेटिव आइसोलेशन, जनरली रिसाइडिंग इन डीप फॉरेस्ट एंड हिल्स, प्रैक्टिसिंग उनका जो खुद का कस्टम्स होता है, हैबिट्स होते हैं, ट्रेडिशंस होते हैं, एंड दे आर टोटली डिफरेंट फ्रॉम नॉन ट्राइबल्स और फ्रॉम द अर्बन पीपल. So the colonial era also had witnessed steady intrusion into tribal areas. बहुत tribal rebellion हुए थे. You can just give a touch and go statement कि बहुत सारे tribal rebellion हुए थे. Okay, against the British, because there was intrusion of the British into their area, or into there's an encroachment, right? So the simmering tribal discontent had found expression in a series of tribal uprising in the 19th and 20th century. You can give 1 to 2 examples. You can give modern history का दे सकते हो. But after independence, government का approach एक होना चाहिए. What was the approach? This is the statement you have to write in mains till here. See, after independence, government's approach was based on nationalist policy towards tribals that had evolved since the 1920s when Gandhi began setting up ashrams in tribal areas. तो ये ऑलरेडी इट हैड बिगन। तो गांधी जी ने ट्राइबल्स के लिए आश्रम्स ट्राइबल एरियाज में ही खोले थे, इट वाज ऑलरेडी स्टार्टेड। और कंस्ट्रक्टिव वर्क वाज वन ऑफ द इम्पोर्टेंट और वन ऑफ द मेन वर्क ऑफ गांधी जी, कंस्ट्रक्टिव वर्क, राइट। व्हेन द व्हेन नेशनल द एनसीएम नॉन कोऑपरेशन मूवमेंट या फिर जो थोड़ा बहुत बंद हो जाता था तो साइड बाय साइड ही वाज द constructive work was carrying on, he was carrying on constructive work, right. Neither isolation nor assimilation was considered desirable, and Nehru adopted the policy of making the tribals an integral part of Indian nation, even while maintaining their distinct identity and culture. Like integral part भी बनाना है, साइड में उनका distinct identity भी maintain करना है. The two basic premise of Nehruvian approach towards tribal integration was, first the tribal areas have to progress. ठीक है, so tribal areas का progress के लिए first काम. Second is they have to progress on their own way. तो उनको भी autonomy दिया जा रहा है, ठीक है. So in order to achieve the two seemingly contradictory goals, they have to progress, but they have to progress in their own way. So in a way, both are not complementing each other. ठीक है. So he laid down some broad guidelines. So there was a tribal pencil, आपको पता होगा, 1956. You can mention here also tribal pencil by Nehru. ठीक है, you can just mention. These are all part of this. So respect for tribal culture, no imposition or compulsion from outside. तो ज़्यादा कंपल्शन या फिर इम्पोजिशन नहीं करेंगे. प्रिजर्वेशन ऑफ ट्राइबल राइट्स ओवर द लैंड्स एंड फॉरेस्ट. Encouragement to tribal languages. Administrators for tribal areas should be recruited from among the tribal ranks. Tribal areas should be administered through their own socio-cultural institutions. ठीक है. तो नेहरू का अप्रोच ऐसा ही था. यू हैव टू जस्ट गिव अ ब्रीफ, जस्ट एक सेंटेंस में लिखोगे दीज आर ट्राइबल्स का जो प्रॉब्लम लिखोगे तो यहीं पे 1950s में इनिशियली दिस वाज द प्रॉब्लम एंड दिस इज हाउ नेहरू हैंडल्ड इट. ओके, ऑब्वियसली प्रॉब्लम्स वेर देयर, प्रॉब्लम्स आर स्टिल देयर. कुछ चीज लाइक नथिंग इज एब्सोल्यूट, बट टिल देन देयर वाज सम steps taken for the integration of tribals. Okay, so for tribals there are some you can give some provisions of the constitution from our polity. So in order to give shape to the tribal policy, safeguards are provided in the constitution itself. Article 46 directed the state to promote the educational and economic interest of the tribal people. So DPSP में उनके बारे में है, and to protect them from social injustice and all forms of exploitation through special legislation. Constitution also extended full political rights to the tribal people. Tribal people also have political rights, also have fundamental rights. Along the lines of scheduled caste, the scheduled tribes are also provided reservation in seats in legislature and in the administrative services. So these are the things which are given in the constitution. But yes, despite constitutional safeguard and legislative action, the progress among tribals had remained slow and inadequate, particularly in view of poor implementation of well-intentioned measures. Obviously over the time चीजें आने लगी, पंचायती राज आने में लेट हुआ, ट्राइबल्स के लिए पैसा एक्ट ये सब बहुत लेट आया, पैसा एक्ट बहुत बाद आया. So but still then you have to just give a brief idea कि these are the things which are done, but yes, eventually things took time, and in the late 90s or early 90s or in the 90s era, proper implementation or proper laws came. But still then till now also full-fledged implementation is not done. Okay, fine. So these are the challenges. Now what are the challenges of establishing a democratic polity? So these challenges were consolidating everybody as an India as a nation, like integrating tribals. So major problems what we discussed now. Major problems we discussed. The number one, integrating. So now integrating tribals. Sorry, this is number 3. Number 1 was rehabilitation, because partition happened. Rehabilitation of refugees. ठीक है. Number 2, linguistic issues. Linguistic में two issues you have to put. One is language, official or national language, and the other one is reorganization. Then integration of tribals. Okay. So these are the points you have to write on your own way. Okay. Now coming to the second challenge. Second challenge is establishing a democratic polity. ठीक है. You have to also, because you are talking कि India is a democratic country, so you have to establish a framework. ठीक है, बिकॉज सिर्फ बोलने से तो नहीं होगा, आपको एस्टेब्लिश करना पड़ेगा हाउ टू हैव ए गुड और हाउ टू प्रिजर्व आवर डेमोक्रेटिक पॉलिटी, हाउ टू प्रिजर्व, फॉर दैट यू हैव टू ब्रिंग सम प्रोविजंस इन द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन. ठीक है, सो व्हाट प्रोविजंस they brought in the constitution? They brought fundamental rights. Directly you can come to here. So the Constitution of India, the highest law of the land, provided for a democratic and parliamentary form of government. See, parliamentary form of government, one thing is we were being ruled by British, and British follows a parliamentary form of government. So it was easy to take that form of government. Okay. Parliamentary form of government with a socialist bias. Socialist bias, why? Because at that point of time, India was a poor country. India was totally deindustrialized. Inequalities were there. So first of all, we have to poverty level, जो poverty level था उनको वहां से ऊपर लाना. We have to bring them out of the poverty. For that, we cannot give the power to the private. We cannot give total power to the capitalist, because capitalist is market oriented, profit oriented. So socialist base has to be there, and it is totally acceptable. Totally acceptable. And it is correct also, because that time was perfect to be a socialist. Okay, but the thing is, what problems happened, that I'll tell you. कि socialist को ठीक से the see, so if the question comes कि how to, you have to, if you have a full understanding, like what are the pros and cons. Socialist was okay during that point of time, it was okay, but the point is they were not able to maintain it. Maintain करना बहुत जरूरी था, because you are giving power to the government. ठीक है, government will establish industries, government will do everything, government will redistribute resources or distribute resources among the people, everything. So you are giving power to the PSU. ठीक है, that is government. But PSU में क्या हुआ? Corruption हुआ. ठीक है, then you are giving the power to the government. Planning Commission 1951 से शुरू हुआ, 5-year plans, but it was also not that successful because it was top down approach. Or क्या हुआ problems? Now you are controlling, like centralization. Okay, it is fine, understood. Centralization was needed at that point of time because India was not developed. To in order to bring every state out of poverty, centralization is required. But what happened was excessive centralization. And when you are doing excessive centralization, so you are not giving autonomy to the states. On one side, we are talking about federalism. On one side, we are talking about centralization. It's totally ironical, right? Plus, proper economic policies were not taken. Proper, I'll come to that. That is the economy side. Proper policies were not taken. First 5-year plan, we're talking about agriculture. Second 5-year plan, we're giving importance to heavy industries. First 5-year plan, you are giving importance to agriculture, and it is good, correct. But second 5-year plan, you are giving importance to heavy industries. To some extent, it is okay. But if critically I had to tell, so you must have continued. Agriculture was there in second 5-year plan also, but here huge importance was given to heavy industries. And in the whole the 30-40 years of the time till 1990s, or even till 2010 also, manufacturing sector was neglected. Manufacturing sector was neglected. We totally shifted from agriculture to services in the 90s. Service sector, IT services, in after 1991, and most of the GDP is contributed by the services sector. But services sector में उतना population है भी नहीं. Our 49% of rural workforce is in agriculture. Agriculture is contributing only 15 to 17% of GDP. Services is contributing into 55 to 60% of GDP. And services sector needs skilled labor. How many people are skilled here? Very less. So these are the issues which happened. Okay, you have to compile it and write it. Okay. So with a socialist bias. With a socialist bias, things got started, and the government took the initiative of taking people out of poverty But here is, we have to have a democratic polity, proper democratic polity. So for that, what has to be done? Challenges: first of all, fundamental rights and DPSPs. Fundamental right and DPSP. Fine, fundamental rights was okay, it is enforceable. You have to no need to read all this. Enforceable directly through article, directly through article 32. Fine. We bought DPSP. ठीक है? Article 36 to Article 51. Fine. But they are not justiciable directly. The major flaw. This is the major flaw. And this flaw is still today also. Yes, the laws are coming to make these DPSPs justiciable, but still then there is a long way. ठीक है? पार्लियामेंट्री सिस्टम. पार्लियामेंट्री सिस्टम में क्या हुआ? Over a period of time, the Indians became familiar with British system of governance. Yes, because India has ruled us, British had ruled us for 200 years. So we have become familiar with that kind of governance, because British में भी parliamentary form of system, parliamentary form of governance चलती है. Naturally, when they were interested with the task of creating a formal institutional framework of state power in India, they opted for the parliamentary system based on the Westminster model. Westminster model ही बोलते हैं वहाँ पे. So under this system होगा क्या? The executive, that is the council of ministers, is collectively responsible to the legislature. The decision making authority is vested in the council of ministers, who is headed by the prime minister. President is merely a nominal head who acts on the aid and advice of the council of ministers. And this council of ministers are nothing but they are representatives. We vote them, right? At the state level also same thing. So there exists an inherent conflict in these roles, which became far more prominent if the ruling in the state happens to be in the opposition of the. Now this is a major challenge which is happening today also, this point. So एक conflict हो जाएगा, inherent conflict रहेगा roles में, अगर ruling party in the state is different from the ruling party in the center. And this has the history also says it. 1960s से लेकर आज तक problems happen. Swift policies will not be implemented. And at the end of the day, the sufferer are the citizens. Okay. Electoral system. The electoral system introduced after independence was the most significant advance towards the democratization of Indian polity, because elections, पहले भी elections थे, but that was not full-fledged. That was only 10% for Government of India Act 1935 Act में जो elections were only 10%. Those who have more land, those who give more tax, they can only vote. So full-fledged voting, that is the universal adult franchise, is started in 1951 only in our first election. So the electoral system introduced was the most significant advance towards the democratization of Indian polity. Under the new system, representative system of government started based on adult franchise was introduced, a big leap forward for an upper caste and male dominated elitist and largely illiterate society. At that point of time, हमारा जो mindset था, largely it was illiterate and it was mostly male dominated. Caste system बहुत था, because historical perspective है ये. Caste system ancient times से है, Vedic times से है. So the election commission was created, Article 324, to supervise the entire procedure for national as well as state elections. But that point of time, these are the problems which are happening. These are the problems. So how to bring them? How to have a democrat? How to preserve the democracy aspect? You can preserve only through universal adult franchise. And for that, Article 324, you have to remember the name. 324 was created and Election Commission came. Election Commission has its own problem. That's a separate issue. We are talking about what are the challenges and what came. These were the challenges and this is the solution. Election Commission was the solution. Because you have to write here, Government of India Act 1935, the last major act where most of the things were taken of our constitution. We borrowed a lot of things from here. So here only 10% people were allowed to vote. That too based on their land holdings, based on their tax returns. ठीक है. Now major problem, फेडरलिज्म प्रॉब्लम हमने बहुत क्वेश्चंस किए फेडरलिज्म में रिसेंटली. सो फेडरलिज्म का प्रॉब्लम आज भी है. मेजर प्रॉब्लम ऑफ इंडिया आल्सो इज अ फेडरलिज्म, बिकॉज देखो फेडरलिज्म वी इन इंडिया we do not follow the full-fledged federalism, because federalism का मतलब is full-fledged autonomy to states like a Canada. Okay, हमारा वहाँ पे हमारा वैसा नहीं है इन इंडिया में. We have unitary bias. Okay, in India, the real meaning of federalism, you have to write what is the meaning of federalism. फेडरलिज्म का मतलब है सिंपल, सेल्फ रूल and shared rule. This is the Indian context of federalism. And shared rule. This is the Indian context of federalism. Normal federalism अगर मीनिंग करोगे तो वेस्टर्न में चलता है वो, दैट इज ओनली सेल्फ रूल, ऑटोनॉमी प्योर. यहाँ पे ऑटोनॉमी मिलता है लेकिन देर इज ए शेयरिंग ऑफ पावर्स. कुछ पावर्स स्टेट करेंगे, कुछ पावर्स सेंटर करेंगे, कुछ कंकरेंट में है. तो सेल्फ रूल भी दिया जाएगा, शेयर्ड रूल भी होगा, सो दैट ओवरऑल वी डेवलप एज ए कंट्री. दैट इज कॉल्ड फेडरलिज्म इन इंडिया. ठीक है. सो दैट वाज आल्सो मेजर प्रॉब्लम. हाउ? सी डिसेंट्रलाइजेशन. यस, इंडिया इज क्वासी फेडरल. दिस इज नथिंग बट क्वासी फेडरल. उसको क्वासी फेडरल ही बोलते हैं अगर पॉलिटी लैंग्वेज में अगर यूज करोगे, क्वासी फेडरल. So if somebody asks you कि what is the definition of federalism, always use a very simple or basic definition. कोई भी फेडरलिज्म क्वेश्चन आ गया, आप एक डिफाइन डेफिनेशन से शुरू कर सकते हो. फेडरलिज्म in India, the federalism is defined as shared self-rule and shared rule, where both center and provinces work together for the overall development of the country or people, anything you can write, or nation. So decentralization of decision-making power is yet another significant feature of a democratic polity. हमने decentralization, decision-making power को भी decentralize किया. However, in the wake of partition, the constitution makers made a strong case for a unitary system. Why? जब पार्टीशन हुआ, फिर कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन बन रहा है, तो दे मेड अ वेरी स्ट्रॉन्ग केस फॉर यूनिटरी सिस्टम. व्हाई? बिकॉज सेम रीजंस, poverty ridden, 200 years of rule, poverty ridden, deindustrialization, how to bring them back. So we cannot simply give power to everyone, because and even there was one major power, regional powers वहाँ पे थे नहीं. Okay, hence what was established in India was a federal system with a strong center. For this purpose, the Indian civil service was retained. Indian civil service जैसा भी था आज भी वैसा ही है. It is central. Unitary का example है Indian civil service. It is centralized, right? आप state में काम करोगे, but you are under the center, right? Centralized services. Various other central services such as CRPF, CISF, BSF have also added to the centralized political structure in India. Further, the term Union of States was preferred over the Federation of States. हमारा जो टर्म कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में लिखा है, यूनियन ऑफ स्टेट्स लिखा है, फेडरेशन ऑफ स्टेट्स नहीं लिखा है. एज द फेडरेशन वाज नॉट अ रिजल्ट ऑफ एग्रीमेंट. बिकॉज कनाडा में जैसा है, फेडरेशन स्टेट्स जो होता है वो एक एग्रीमेंट हुआ है बाय स्टेट्स टू जॉइन इन अ फेडरेशन, एंड नो स्टेट हैड द राइट टू secede from it. Thus, federation was really a union because it was indestructible. हमारा जो फेडरलिज्म है इसीलिए थोड़ा यूनिटरी बायस. इट वाज रियली a union because it was indestructible. So India also at that point of time preserved the concept of federalism by giving some autonomy to the states, and that also resulted in preserving our democratic polity. Okay. मेजर प्रॉब्लम सेकुलरिज्म. सी दीज आर सेपरेट क्वेश्चंस आल्सो. सेकुलरिज्म का अलग से क्वेश्चन आ सकता है, फेडरलिज्म का अलग से क्वेश्चन आ सकता है, एंड देयर प्रेजेंट चैलेंजेस. दिस इज नॉट द राइट लेक्चर टू टेल यू अबाउट दैट, बिकॉज आई हैव ऑलरेडी शेयर्ड इन माय मेंस क्लास कि सेकुलरिज्म का अलग से रेलिवेंट इश्यूज आज के डेट में क्या होता है, रीजनलिज्म का क्या होता है. दिस इज पोस्ट इंडिपेंडेंस. जस्ट इंडिपेंडेंस के बाद चैलेंजेस क्या था. ऑब्वियसली सेकुलरिज्म इज अ इशू नाउ, इवन फेडरलिज्म इज एन इशू नाउ, बट द आंसर विल बी डिफरेंट. You have to give the recent examples. Okay. Secularism refers to the character of state and society where there is complete separation of politics. Complete. See, complete. You have to use the pure. What is secularism? Secularism मतलब complete separation of politics, administration, and public social life from religion. Do we have complete separation? No. Our India's model of secularism is different. 2018 mains question पे आया था. You have to write the difference between Western secularism and our secularism. हमारा सेट का जो secularism है इंडिया का. So इंडिया का मॉडल जो है that is religion neutrality. ठीक है, religious neutrality, equal treatment towards all religion, that is dharma nirpekshata. You can use this word, dharma nirpekshata. Both Nehru and Ambedkar were in favor of a legal institutional framework of secularism which could prohibit the use of religion in politics and administration of the nation. उन्होंने नेहरू और अंबेडकर ने फेवर किया था कि ऐसा फ्रेमवर्क लाएंगे, लीगल लॉ लाएंगे जो कि रिलीजन को कभी भी प्रोहिबिट करेगा पॉलिटिक्स में और एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन में यूज करने के लिए. ठीक है, सेवरल दो, लेकिन वो चाहते थे, लेकिन सेवरल फोर्सेस कंपेल देम टू कॉम्प्रोमाइज ऑन देयर मॉडल ऑफ रैडिकल सेकुलरिज्म. महात्मा गांधी तो बिल्कुल बोले थे कि रिलीजन कुड नॉट बी सेपरेटेड फ्रॉम पॉलिटिक्स. तो कहीं ना कहीं थोड़ा व्यू हल्का सा अलग था. जैसे कि हमने मॉडर्न हिस्ट्री में पढ़ा था महात्मा गांधी के बारे में, उन्होंने बोला था कि रिलीजन कभी भी सेपरेट नहीं करना चाहिए. एंड उसका पॉजिटिव भी है, नेगेटिव भी है. आई विल कम टू दैट. इसका भी एक क्वेश्चन आ सकता है, मैं बता देता हूं. रिलीजन कुड नॉट बी सेपरेटेड फ्रॉम पॉलिटिक्स, one thing. Another thing is religion should be separated from politics. Both has its pros and cons with perspective to a country like India. हमको आंसर इंडिया के पर्सपेक्टिव से लिखना है. तो पहले रिलीजन कुड नॉट बी सेपरेटेड फ्रॉम पॉलिटिक्स. यस, अगर तो इसका मतलब पॉलिटिक्स में रिलीजन, आई एम नॉट सेइंग हियर कि यूज ऑफ रिलीजन इन पॉलिटिक्स. नो, डू नॉट कंफ्यूज कि यूज ऑफ रिलीजन. नो, महात्मा गांधी नेवर सेड कि यूज रिलीजन इन ए पॉलिटिक्स. नथिंग. रिलीजन शुड नॉट बी सेपरेटेड फ्रॉम पॉलिटिक्स. इट मीन्स रिलीजन को हमेशा रेगुलेशन. इंडिया में खुला छूट नहीं है ना किसी को रिलीजन में कुछ भी करने के लिए. वी हैव यस राइट टू प्रोफेस रिलीजन इज देयर, बट इट ऑल्सो कम्स विथ रेस्ट्रिक्शंस. सो रेगुलेट. So the political party can regulate affairs of a religion. It can regulate. अगर पब्लिक पर्पस के लिए यहाँ पे जैसे दिल्ली में झंडे वालन का मंदिर है, अगर कल यहाँ पे इतना ट्रैफिक हो जाएगा तो कल अगर गवर्नमेंट ने बोला उसको अलग से एयरलिफ्ट करके रखने के लिए प्रपोजल भी आया था, वो कर सकते हैं. इट कैन रेगुलेट. ट्रिपल तलाक को बैन किया बिकॉज इट वाज अगेंस्ट द डिग्निटी ऑफ वुमेन, इट वाज अगेंस्ट इक्वालिटी. सो इट कैन डू. सो इट मीन्स religion could not be separated. It is supporting. Religion could not be separated from politics, because if it's not the case, so what happens is, again, triple talaq chalega. जब triple talaq chalega, so it is against women empowerment, it is against the dignity of women. So हर religion अपना अपना चीज जब ले आएंगे, so it will be a huge problem in a country like India. That's what I'm saying. It will not be a problem in a country like USA. बिकॉज देयर रिलीजन का प्रॉब्लम है ही नहीं. वहां पे रेसिज्म का प्रॉब्लम हो सकता है, बट रिलीजन का प्रॉब्लम उतना नहीं है बिकॉज उनका डाइवर्सिटी नहीं है यहाँ पे. हमारा यहाँ पे इंडिया इज ए डाइवर्सिफाइड कंट्री, डाइवर्स, बहुत सारे रिलीजन कम्युनिटीज हैं यहाँ पे. वहां पे वो सिस्टम नहीं है. वहां पे मेजर क्रिश्चियनिटी है तो क्रिश्चियनिटी के हिसाब से सब चलते हैं. सो इन दैट, इन यूएस कंप्लीट सेपरेशन. This, the real meaning of secularism is applied in the Western countries. Complete separation of politics, administration, and public social life from religion, because their countries requirement ही वैसा है. उनका कंट्री का जो सिनेरियो है वैसा है. उनका डाइवर्स उतना नहीं है. हमारा बहुत डाइवर्स है, हम वैसा कर नहीं सकते. So गांधी जी said the right thing. Somebody has to dare to control, obviously in a good way. Gandhi ji did not say use religion for vote banks. No. You cannot use a religion for a vote bank. Gandhiji also supported secularism. You have to treat all religion equally, but at the same side by side, you have to also regulate a religion for the nice or for the common good of the public or for the people. Okay? So the communalized atmosphere during freedom and partition of the country had further weakened the stand of the secularists, because at that time communalized हो चुका था. राइट्स बहुत हो रहे थे, डिवीजन कैसे हुआ था इंडिया पाकिस्तान का, वी ऑल नो. देयरफॉर द मॉडल ऑफ सेकुलरिज्म दैट वाज अडॉप्टेड फॉर फ्री इंडिया वाज अ कॉम्प्रोमाइज बिटवीन द टू एक्सट्रीम पोल्स ऑफ ऑर्थोडॉक्स हिंदू कम्युनलिज्म एंड radical secularism. Hence was what was adopted, because at that point of time दो अलग अलग पोलराइजेशन हो गया था, ठीक है. Hence what was adopted was the religious neutrality, that is dharma nirpekshata model of secularism, implying distancing from direct religious propaganda and its use in politics. So do not use religious propaganda in politics. So we have a law, RPA Act. We have a law, RPA. You cannot do religious propaganda. You cannot give religious speeches in campaign, in a election rally, or in a election campaigning. People are doing that, is a separate thing. It's not being implemented in a nice way, but at least law is there. ठीक है. So secularism is very hard to control. Secularism in a country like India, this can come as a question. In a country like India, it's very difficult to control. A lot of issues are there because political parties are giving bhadkao bhashan and all they are giving, and not all political parties, but both opposition and opponents. There are some leaders who give, so it is creating problems among communities. Divisive politics खेला जाता है, vote banks होते हैं. Okay. Now misuse of religion as a political tool. Obviously misuse करते हैं, religion को misuse आज भी करते हैं. So misuse of religion as a political tool. Thus religion was partially, so हमारा partially dissociated from state, but could not be completely debarred from public and political life. It could not be completely done. The reason is India is a diverse country. A lot of religion are there. If nobody will control, things can go to extreme thing. Nobody will listen to anyone. They can do anything in the name of religion. This ensured that the politics of India remained soaked in communal conflicts, the root cause of which was not invocation of religion for any religious gains but for merely political gains. तो पॉलिटिकल इस रिलीजन को मिसयूज करना शुरू हो गया, आज भी हो रहा है, ठीक है. लेकिन यस, इंडिया उस टाइम पे जो चीज हम लेके आए थे, दैट इज धर्म निरपेक्षता, दैट इज द neutrality of religious neutrality was a very good step towards true secularism. But the point is, it was our leaders who again उस चीज को बहुत ही और बैकवर्ड लेके चले गए. आज डेट में बहुत बैकवर्ड हो चुका है. सो इट हैज टू बी a leader who should come to a front and again bring this dharma nirapshata 2.0 in modern times. ओके, सो दैट आज के डेट में जो यूथ है, जो मॉडर्न कल्चर है, हम एक अलग सेकुलरिज्म, नियो सेकुलरिज्म करके कर सकते हैं. ऐसे करके आप आंसर को लिख सकते हो. ओके, सो फ्रीडम ऑफ रिलीजन हमारे पास है. 25(1) गारंटीज द फ्रीडम ऑफ कॉन्साइंस एंड फ्रीडम ऑफ प्रोफेस कर सकते हो, प्रैक्टिस कर सकते हो. बट येस, इट इज सब्जेक्ट टू रेस्ट्रिक्शंस बिकॉज नथिंग इज एब्सोल्यूट. नो फंडामेंटल राइट इज एब्सोल्यूट. सो आर्टिकल 15 भी सबको बोलता है कि डिस्क्रिमिनेट नहीं करेगा. इन दैट इज ओनली द ग्राउंड्स ऑफ दिस आर द ग्राउंड्स. देयर इज ऑल्सो ए ग्राउंड कॉल्ड रिलीजन. सो आर्टिकल 15 also promotes secularism. What is not there, but whenever it promotes, it preserves, because no discrimination on the grounds of religion, race, caste, sex, or place of birth, or any one of them. Even Article 16, employment में equality of opportunity of all citizens, irrespective of religion, of all citizens. All citizens में हर कोई आता है. So बैक एंड में आर्टिकल 15, 16 में कहीं ना कहीं सेकुलरिज्म का जो सोल है वो है. ठीक है, ओके. ये एक चैलेंज खत्म होना. कमिंग टू द थर्ड एंड द फाइनल चैलेंज, दैट इज सोशियो इकोनॉमिक डेवलपमेंट. सोशियो इकोनॉमिक डेवलपमेंट ये भी बहुत जरूरी है. तो सोशियो इकोनॉमिक डेवलपमेंट के लिए इट वाज अ प्रॉब्लम. फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल यू हैव टू राइट कि 200 ईयर्स का प्रॉब्लम हुआ था. डी इंडस्ट्रियलाइजेशन हो गया था, पॉवर्टी हो गया था. ब्रिटिश वाज जस्ट सेटिस्फाइंग इट्स ओन कमर्शियल इंटरेस्ट. सो आवर इंडियंस, the peasants, the agriculture, everyone were going through poverty. So it was the duty of the country or of the leaders to bring socio-economic development. That's why they took centralization. One thing. Second thing, they brought DPSP in our constitution. Welfare goals, that is nothing but DPSP. 36 article to 51. Remember this. You can use it. It had liberal approach. It had Gandhian provisions. Everything it had. Okay. So the welfare goals to be achieved by the state were laid down in the form of DPSPs. The principles of equality and special protection to the socially advantaged groups and religious and cultural communities were also laid down in the constitution. But DPSP, you brought the DPSP, but the problem is how to implement the DPSP is till now a problem. It's an issue. This is you have to write. Yes, there are laws. There are some labor laws. There are some laws which are doing it. But again, implementation is an issue till now. It's not properly implemented. There are loopholes in the laws. So how they design, how they plan was a challenge, and it's still a challenge. Okay. Next. So for social development, one is DPSP. Second thing, planned development, 5-year plans. So for 5-year plans, what happened first? And this was all taken from the Soviet Union model. So first planning commission happened. Okay, but planning commission happened. So here you have to write it was top to bottom. Okay, not bottom up. Top to bottom approach. Okay. So planning commission, they will give the targets. This is the target you have to do in 5 years. It continued till 2014. But after this, Niti Aayog came. 2012 to 2017 was the last planning commission, but in midway it was replaced by Niti Aayog. Okay. So Bombay plan was there, so no need to write much. You can just planned development was at that point of time was brought. Okay, so 5-year plans came. Okay, so वहाँ पे the government document prepare करेगा, वहाँ पे government का income expenditure everything will be mentioned for the 5 years. Okay, and they will give the targets. You have to write. They will give targets. You have to achieve 4% target or a 5% target or a 6% target in these 5 years. They'll give to the so it was a top to bottom approach. They will give the target to the states. You have to do. Okay. Even at that point of time, states were not consulted. So again, centralized. That's why it was a problem. It was hugely centralized. Okay. So the first 3 plans in a way succeeded in laying the foundation of the India's economic development. Yes, there are problems, but generally, yeah, it succeeded in laying a foundation. एक foundation हो गया. फिर 2012 तक वो चला. Okay. Now planning and industrialization side by side, you have to. This is a 5-year plan. This is a umbrella 5-year plan, but you have to do something for proper for industrialization, right? So the first industrial policy resolution was adopted in 1948. Nobody will ask you what are the provisions of this resolution unless and until you are from economics optional. Economics optional paper 2 mein they will ask you, but in normal mains they will not ask you. Okay, but the thing is, you have to use this in the answer. Just you have to use this. You have to remember 1948 पे हुआ था, 1956 पे हुआ था. Okay, if you remember 1948 also, that is important. ये एक resolution है. It was a policy. Policy के बाद एक law आया. That law name was Industries Development and Regulation Act of 1951, the first law. Okay, regarding the industries development. Just you have to write 2 things. You have to write कि this was the industrial policy resolution. Okay, where the document suggested कि we need to go for public control. That is the we need to the government should have the control over industries. Okay, so here you can write this policy laid down certain goals for industrial policy, which included prevention of concentration of economic power. Okay, nobody will hold like economic power, like a private cannot hold some private people cannot hold this economic power. Okay, prevention of growth of monopoly. Monopoly will not be there, but today monopoly is there. Today monopoly is there, right? Telecom industry, it is oligopoly. That is, it is controlled by 2 to 3 major Reliance, the Jio, Tata, Airtel, 3 to 4 people. Okay, but at that point of time it was not the case. Everything was done by the government, most of the thing. Balanced regional development, restriction on imports, generation of employment, and maintaining price stability. Some industries were reserved exclusively for public sector. There's atomic energy, armaments, while others were open to private enterprises. But again, you need to get a license. The government has to give a license. Today it's not the case. Today you have to get a license for an atomic, for a space, uh, or for any kind of sensitive sector. You have to get a license. You do not need a license to open a company, or you any kind of like, if suppose take the educational, you can open your own educational institute. Okay, so this policy was implemented through this act, Industrial Development and Regulation Act of 1951. Okay, so here they said that the government now acquired was the government had the power to issue licenses. So license raj shuru hua, and this license raj was stopped after 1991 LPG reforms. Okay, so license was required for setting up medium and large scale industries. The act also empowered the government to regulate the location, technology, production, import, sale, wages, salaries, etc. Everything the government will regulate. See, now if you hear, you might find it regressive. You might find it regressive. But at that point of time, this was the only option. Because we just got independence after 200 years. Things were not good. Nobody had money also. Nobody had money. All private people were also like deindustrialized, and they did not have money. So government had to do. Okay. So the government, the license Raj one ho gaya. Second is it had the power to regulate the location, production, technology, imports, sales, wages, salaries, everything government will do. Yes, private was there, but through licensing. And it's up to the government to give license or not. Okay, so very few private companies they got the license on some specific sectors. Okay, next. So this is a like, if you have a total understanding of 1947 to 1991 by crux points and by a overall discussion, so you can write on your own. No need to go through any book. Also, you can write and you can give this like, if somebody asks you also, you can tell them these are the things which happened over the years. Next, mixed economy. So that's what I said, public, but some private were there. So it was a mixed economy. Okay. So mixed economy, that is the coexistence of public and private sector. The public sector was to occupy a central role, but public sector means PSUs was to occupy a central role, while adequate protection was offered to the private enterprises and foreign capital was kept under strict supervision. Foreign capital जो आएगा बहुत strict supervision से आएगा. So it was kind of a closed economy. I'll not say totally closed, but yes, they were moving towards a closed economy till 1991. Under this protective umbrella, the development of a self-reliant industrial economy was envisaged कि हम एक self-reliant industrial economy करेंगे through the process of import substitution. Input को substitute करेंगे. But again, problem क्या हुआ? Now can anyone tell me? The things are looking very good, but why did not happen? हम इंपोर्ट को सब्सटीट्यूट करेंगे, सेल्फ रिलायंट इंडस्ट्रियल इकोनॉमी करेंगे. इंडस्ट्रियल इकोनॉमी करने के लिए यू नीड ए गुड मैन्युफैक्चरिंग सेक्टर. आप प्रोड्यूस करोगे चीजें, इंडस्ट्री बनाओगे, कैसे बनाओगे? मैन्युफैक्चरिंग सेक्टर जब तक अच्छा रहेगा तब जाके बनेगा प्रोडक्ट. एंड दिस इज द सेक्टर वी नेग्लेक्टेड. नाउ वी हैव दिस मेक इन इंडिया. नाउ वी हैव मेक इन इंडिया जो कि मैन्युफैक्चरिंग सेक्टर को प्रमोट कर रहा है. And it came in 2014. We neglected over the years this manufacturing sector. Every developed country goes through three phases: agri, then manufacturing, then services. We went agriculture to services. That was our major drawback. So policies were there, but implementation in the right way were not there. These are the problems you have to write. Okay. Fine. So development. Next is development of basic and capital goods sectors. This was also needed. We need basic or capital goods. We need to develop their sector. So India was abundant, and India was abundant in raw materials. Everyone knows it. India was abundant in raw materials like metals and minerals, and thus it was suggested that Indian first should concentrate on basic industries. Basic industries जैसे कि steel, coal, heavy industry, petroleum, cement, etc., which would lay the basis for rapid industrial development. ठीक है. Further, since the investment in this sector would yield low returns, so it was suggested कि public sector should take up this responsibility. ठीक है. So this things were happening in 1956. So remember, in 1951, first 5-year plan, they gave more importance to agriculture. Now in 1956, they are talking about this. It is okay. You have to talk, you have to bring innovative ideas at that point of time. So they focused on basic industries or capital industries, capital goods. Okay? Machinery, steel, coal. So what they did is the second 5-year plan, 1956. Second 5-year plan में क्या हुआ? Mahalanobis model. Mahalanobis model, जो PC Mahalanobis, very famous. So he told you should focus on heavy industries. So second 5-year plan laid great stress, not the only stress, laid great stress on heavy industries. Okay. And that point of time also in 1955, 1 year before, the Congress had already passed an important resolution declaring the socialist pattern of society as its goal. अवध पे हुआ था, अवधि पे हुआ था, नियर मैड्रास. वेरी इंपोर्टेंट. 1955 वहां पे उन्होंने बोल दिया था पोस्ट इंडिपेंडेंस की एक रिजोल्यूशन पास किया था जहां पे उन्होंने बोला था वी नीड अ सोशलिस्ट पैटर्न ऑफ सोसाइटी. 1955. ठीक है. So the government imposed substantial tariffs in imports to protect domestic industries. तो हमने काफी टैरिफ लगा दिया इंपोर्ट्स के ऊपर ताकि हमारा डोमेस्टिक इंडस्ट्रीज अच्छे से और हो जाए. ठीक है. तो अगेन यहाँ पे भी हमने थोड़ा एग्रीकल्चर को नेग्लेक्ट किया था जो कि बाद में सॉल्व हो गया व्हेन ग्रीन रिवॉल्यूशन केम. सो दिस इज लाइक द टाइमलाइन जैसे भी चीजें हो रही थी. ओके. नेक्स्ट. फिर बीच में भी इंडस्ट्रियल लाइसेंसिंग पॉलिसी बहुत सारे कमिटीज आ रही थी, अलग अलग रूल्स थोड़ा बहुत चेंज कर रहे थे, बट बेसिकली लाइसेंस राज था. ओके. नेक्स्ट कमिंग टू प्लानिंग एंड अभी इंडस्ट्रियल का थोड़ा स्टार्टिंग हो गया. अभी लैंड रिफॉर्म्स भी हो रहे थे. लैंड रिफॉर्म ने जस्ट आफ्टर 3 लाइन्स इंटरमीडियरीज को एबोल्यूशन किया, टेनेंसी रिफॉर्म्स में लाया. ठीक है. जो इंटरमीडियरीज थे जैसे कि जमींदार, तलुकदार, ये सब काफ़ी बहुत ही बड़े बड़े लोग थे जो कि मॉडर्न हिस्ट्री ब्रिटिश इंडिया के टाइम पे. सो द गवर्नमेंट एबोलिश द कैटेगरी ऑफ इंटरमीडियरी सच एज द जमींदार्स एंड तालुकदार्स हु एक्सरसाइज कंट्रोल ओवर लैंड कल्टिवेटेड बाय टेनेंट्स. सो ये एबोल्यूशन हुआ. सो एबोल्यूशन ऑफ इंटरमीडियरीज और अलग टेनेंसी रिफॉर्म्स लिया. द राइट ऑफ द कल्टिवेटर ओवर द लैंड ही टिल्ड वाज रिस्टोर्ड and tenants were directly responsible to pay revenue to the government. Further, the government also abolished the control of such intermediaries over common land of the village and vested their control in elected village panchayats. तो ये सब काफी गवर्नमेंट ने करा था. Obviously it was not 100% successful, but still then things got started. Okay, so abolition of intermediaries and tenancy reforms हुआ जो कि हम लैंड रिफॉर्म्स में बात करते हैं. फिर हो लैंड होल्डिंग्स पे सीलिंग लगा दिया गवर्नमेंट ने. द लेजिस्लेशन डीलिंग विद सीलिंग ऑन लैंड होल्डिंग्स केम इनटू एग्जिस्टेंस ड्यूरिंग 1950s, बट ये स्टेट टू स्टेट वेरी किया. ठीक है. अंडर दिस मेजर द सरप्लस लैंड, जिसके पास सरप्लस लैंड है एक्वायर्ड वाज टू बी डिस्ट्रीब्यूटेड अमंग द वीकर सेक्शंस ऑफ द सोसाइटी. ठीक है. जिसके पास सरप्लस लैंड है, काइंड ऑफ गांधीयन मॉडल ये था. गांधीयन मॉडल जो ट्रस्टीशिप मॉडल के ऊपर ये थोड़ा बहुत बना था. सो इट वाज डिस्ट्रीब्यूटेड टू डिस्ट्रीब्यूट योर सरप्लस लैंड अमंग द वीकर सेक्शंस ऑफ द सोसाइटी सच एज द रूरल पुअर, द लैंडलेस, द शेड्यूल्ड कास्ट एक्सेट्रा एक्सेट्रा. हाउएवर दिस लेजिस्लेशन कुड नॉट बी इफेक्टिवली इंप्लीमेंटेड. क्यों? क्योंकि जो लैंडलॉर्ड्स थे उन्होंने अपना सरप्लस लैंड ट्रांसफर किया ऑन द नेम ऑफ द रिलेटिव्स, फ्रेंड्स, नोन एज बेनामी ट्रांसफर्स हो गया टू अवॉइड द सीलिंग लॉस. सो ये भी एक मेजर ऑब्स्टेकल था. दैट्स व्हाट आई सेड कि 100% सक्सेसफुल नहीं हो पाया. फिर उन्होंने लैंड होल्डिंग्स को कंसोलिडेट किया, कंसोलिडेशन ऑफ लैंड होल्डिंग्स, ठीक है, क्योंकि पॉपुलेशन प्रेशर बढ़ रहे थे, इनहेरिटेंस लॉज भी अलग, वो भी इक्वली डिवाइड कर रहे थे इनहेरिटेंस, क्योंकि जब इनहेरिटेंस के ऊपर, बच्चे के ऊपर, जब जो फादर के बाद सन के ऊपर जो लैंड आता है तो कहीं ना कहीं वो फ्रैगमेंट हो जाता है, तो कंसोलिडेशन ऑफ लैंड होल्डिंग्स भी एक चीज आया। तो दीज आर द लैंड रिफॉर्म्स में आज चीज लिख सकते हो। डायरेक्ट क्वेश्चन लैंड रिफॉर्म्स में नहीं आएगा जीएस में, बट इकोनॉमिक्स ऑप्शनल पेपर 2 में डायरेक्ट आएगा, सो यू हैव टू एक्सप्लेन दिस, बट in GS it will be a very umbrella kind of question, so you have to mention in one point that these are the things which are done. Okay, fine. फूड क्राइसिस हो रहे थे, सो फूड क्राइसिस था बिकॉज अगेन द रीजंस आर सेम, ब्रिटिश फूड क्राइसिस था बिकॉज यहाँ पे आप एक चीज ऐड कर सकते हो, तो ब्रिटिशर्स ऑलवेज वेंट फॉर कमर्शियलाइजेशन ऑफ एग्रीकल्चर, कमर्शियलाइजेशन ऑफ एग्रीकल्चर, और यहाँ पे उन्होंने बस बोला कि कैश क्रॉप्स प्रोड्यूस करो, कैश क्रॉप्स लाइक कॉटन, इंडिगो, कमर्शियलाइजेशन ऑफ एग्रीकल्चर इज अ मॉडर्न हिस्ट्री टॉपिक, इंडिगो, ताकि दिस विल हेल्प इन देयर इंडस्ट्रियल प्रोडक्शन, उनका जो ब्रिटेन का जो इंडस्ट्रियल प्रोडक्शन है और इंडस्ट्रियल रिवॉल्यूशन है वहां पे हेल्प करेगा, ठीक है। सो दे सॉ इंडिया एज अ सोर्स ऑफ कैश क्रॉप्स और रॉ मटेरियल्स, इट विल बी यूज्ड एज अ रॉ मटेरियल्स इन ब्रिटिश। तो ऑलरेडी प्रॉब्लम था, तो हम क्या करते थे, इंडिपेंडेंस के बाद हमने फूड इंपोर्ट्स किया, हमारा इंपोर्ट बढ़ा, ठीक है, ठीक है, इंडस्ट्रियल प्रोडक्शन में हमने ज़्यादा इंपोर्ट नहीं कर पाए, सब्स्टिट्यूशन किया, लेकिन फूड पे तो करना पड़ेगा ना, बिकॉज नहीं तो फूड शॉर्टेज हो जाएगी। सो फॉरेन एड गवर्नमेंट वाज फूड इम्पोर्ट्स हुआ, हम बहुत सारी चीज़ें कर रहे थे, बट द गुड थिंग वाज ग्रीन रिवोल्यूशन आ गया। ग्रीन रिवोल्यूशन जब आया तो हाई यील्डिंग वैरायटीज आ गया, केमिकल फर्टिलाइजर्स आ गया, पेस्टिसाइड्स, बेटर इरिगेशन फैसिलिटीज एट सब्सिडाइज्ड प्राइस आ गया, सो इट वाज अ वेरी गुड थिंग, बट अगेन इट वाज, प्रॉब्लम में लिखोगे इट वाज नॉट अ पैन इंडिया, ये ईस्ट को भी नहीं आ पाया, नॉट इवन टू ईस्ट, इट वाज बेसिकली लिमिटेड टू पंजाब, हरियाणा जो नॉर्थ पार्ट है। स्टिल देन it brought self-sufficiency over the years, it brought self-sufficiency in agriculture, self-sufficiency in agriculture ये लेके आ गया, ओके, राइस व्हीट बहुत अच्छे से बनने लगे, ओके, तो इट रेज द अवेलेबिलिटी ऑफ फूड ग्रेन्स इन द कंट्री, एंड अलग से ग्रीन रेवोल्यूशन का क्वेश्चन आ सकता है, जो कि GS 3 पे, ठीक है। एक क्वेश्चन आया था ऑप्शनल में, फिर रिमेंबर 2018 मैंने जब दिया था, अच्छा वो ऑप्शनल पे आया था, पेपर 2 पे आया था, बट इट कैन कम इन पेपर 3 ऑल्सो, ठीक है, एंड यू कैन राइट ग्रीन रेवोल्यूशन का प्लस एंड माइनस आप लिख ही सकते हो। साइंस एंड टेक्नोलॉजी पे क्या होता है, तो आप अलग अलग करके अगर दो दो लाइन अगर आप मेंस में लिख दोगे, कोई आंसर क्वेश्चन आया तो मार्क बहुत अच्छे से आ जाएंगे। तो यहाँ पे साइंस में क्या हुआ, so development of science and technology, and see महात्मा गांधी was not in favor of science and technology, so development of science and technology में एक पॉलिसी आई थी जिसका नाम है साइंटिफिक पॉलिसी रिजोल्यूशन ऑफ 1958, so ये भी नेहरू का ही था। so साइंटिफिक पॉलिसी रिजोल्यूशन ऑफ 1958 एक आया, guided by Nehruvian conviction that it was science alone that could solve the problems of hunger and poverty, of insanitation and illiteracy, or superstition and deadening custom and traditions, of vast resources running to a waste of a rich country inhabited by starving people। उन्होंने बोला था साइंस ही ये सब चीजें सॉल्व कर सकती है, जो कि करेक्ट है, ठीक है। तो यहाँ पे आप लिख सकते हो साइंस में अर्ली डेवलपमेंट्स क्या हुआ, नेशनल फिजिकल लाइब्रेटरी हुआ, ठीक है, तो ये फाउंडेशन हुआ था 1947 में। फिर ए नेटवर्क ऑफ 17 नेशनल लैबोरेटरीज स्पेशलाइजिंग इन डिफरेंट एरियाज ऑफ रिसर्च वेर सेट अप ड्यूरिंग द नेहरूवियन एरा एज चेयरमैन ऑफ द काउंसिल। CSIR 1944 पे हुआ था, ठीक है, तो 1944 से CSIR ऑलरेडी बन चुका है, जो कि हम मॉडर्न हिस्ट्री में पढ़े थे। So as a chairman of CSIR, he himself guided the funding of these national labs and other scientific institutions. CSIR के अंदर में बहुत सारे institutions है. Institutes of Technology, ठीक है, 1952 partnered with the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. The first Indian Institute of Technology was set up at Kharagpur. 4 other followed by Delhi, Madras, Bombay, Kanpur, with the aim of providing technical personnel for the country. तो IITs बहुत बने. पहला खड़गपुर में बना था. सबसे बड़ी चीज एटॉमिक एनर्जी बनी थी इनके अंडर में 1948. एटॉमिक एनर्जी कमीशन, करंट अफेयर्स में पढ़े थे हम. सो एटॉमिक एनर्जी कमीशन बना था अंडर द चेयरमैन ऑफ होमी बाबा. फिर फाइनली 1954 पे एक सेपरेट डिपार्टमेंट ऑफ एटॉमिक एनर्जी बना विच डायरेक्टली अंडर प्राइम मिनिस्टर ऑफिस. बट ये प्राइम मिनिस्टर ऑफिस अभी नहीं आया, ये बाद में आएगा, 1960s में आएगा. ठीक है, पढ़ेंगे आगे. प्राइम मिनिस्टर ऑफिस आएगा शास्त्री के टाइम पे, इफ आई एम नॉट रॉन्ग. प्राइम मिनिस्टर शास्त्री के टाइम पे. आज के डेट में डिपार्टमेंट ऑफ एटॉमिक एनर्जी डायरेक्टली रिपोर्ट्स टू प्राइम मिनिस्टर ऑफ इंडिया. इट्स नॉट अंडर एनी मिनिस्ट्री. तो ये भी आया. तो इंडिया फर्स्ट न्यूक्लियर रिएक्टर इन ट्रॉम्बे भी आया. तो ये सब पॉइंट्स ऑफ साइंस एंड टेक में लिख सकते हो. इनिशियल टाइम पे, पोस्ट इंडिपेंडेंस के टाइम पे क्या क्या हुआ था. फिर उसके बाद तो आप इसरो वगैरह लिख सकते हो. बट नेहरू की एरिया चल रहा है, अभी नेहरू एरा चल रहा है, तो उसका नेहरू पे आप इसरो नहीं लिख सकते. ये सब चीज ज्यादा हुआ था. बाद में तो इसरो आ गया. ओके. तो एक बहुत ही बड़ा चीज हुआ था तुम्बा करके साउथ इंडिया में. इंडिया ऑल्सो प्रॉम्प्टली अंडरटुक स्पेस रिसर्च बहुत ही इनिशियल टाइम एंड सेटअप इट्स फर्स्ट रॉकेट लॉन्चिंग फैसिलिटी एट तुम्बा एंड इट इज इन केरला. त्रिवेंद्रम में है पूरा साउथ इंडिया पे. ओके, ये भी हमने, ये न्यूज़ में भी था, ये हमने करंट अफेयर में भी पढ़ा है. तो ये आप चीज़ लिखोगे. फिर फाइनली फॉरेन पॉलिसी. फॉरेन पॉलिसी देखो, फॉरेन पॉलिसी में हमेशा याद रखना कि ही वाज इनिशियल टाइम की बात कर रहा हूँ, जो कि हम मॉडर्न हिस्ट्री कॉन्ट्रीब्यूटर्स में क्वेश्चन किए थे. नेहरू, जवाहरलाल नेहरू का जो आइडियोलॉजी था रिगार्डिंग फॉरेन पॉलिसी, ही वाज अ पैसिफिस्ट, ही वाज एन इंटरनेशनलिस्ट. ठीक है, he was not aggressive, by the way. He did not have much interest in modernization of army, and this was the bone of contention between Sardar Patel and Nehru. Nehru always wanted कि no need of modernization of army, we can talk, peaceful talks करके हम solve करेंगे. But Patel wanted modernization army, and this is one of the reason why India China war पे China took the lead 1961 की war. Okay, so Indian nationalism never crossed the line of largely succeeded in maintaining. Never crossed the line मतलब वो ज़्यादा एग्रेसिव पॉलिसी पे बिलीव नहीं करते थे. फॉरेन पॉलिसी में आप पंसिल के बारे में लिखोगे, पीसफुल को रिलेशंस, नॉन इंटरफेरेंस विद नेबरिंग कंट्रीज, पंसिल के बारे में लिखोगे. यहाँ पे नाम के बारे में लिखोगे, नॉन अलाइनमेंट पॉलिसी, बेलग्रेड कॉन्फ्रेंस ऑफ 1961, ही टुक द लीड कि विल नॉट टेक साइड्स ऑफ यूएसएसआर और यूएस. So Indian nationalism never crossed the line and largely succeeded in maintaining a safe distance from chauvinism or jingoism. ठीक है, तो उनका जो इट वाज सी नेशनलिज्म और पैट्रियटिज्म में क्वेश्चन एथिक्स में आ सकता है. व्हाट इज द डिफरेंस बिटवीन नेशनलिज्म एंड पैट्रियटिज्म? याद रखना, नेशनल पैट्रियटिज्म इज लव फॉर योर ओन कंट्री, लव फॉर द पीपल ऑफ योर कंट्री. पैट्रियटिज्म विल नेवर सपोर्ट वॉर. नेशनलिज्म कैन सपोर्ट्स वॉर. नेशनलिज्म कैन लीड टू जिंगोइज्म. मतलब जैसे कि हमें क्रिकेट मैच देखते हैं, वहां पे दैट इज नॉट पैट्रियटिज्म. वहां पे हम इट इज द हेट्रेड फॉर अ कंट्री विच इज ऑपोजिट टू अस. दैट इज नेशनलिज्म. एंड रिमेंबर, पैट्रियटिज्म is always against nationalism, against the ideology of nationalism. ठीक है, जीएस के क्वेश्चन में आ सकता है ये, जीएस 4 के एथिक्स में. सो पैट्रियटिज्म मतलब लव फॉर योर ओन कंट्री, एंड नेशनलिज्म मीन्स हेट्रेड फॉर अनदर कंट्री, हेट्रेड फॉर योर एनिमी कंट्री और अनदर कंट्री. and patriotism is love for your own country. So give me an example. Patriotism example. Anyone? Rabindranath Tagore. Nationalism example. Anyone? Bal Gangadhar Tilak. Okay. Obviously, it changed later, 1951 में. See, at that point of time, it is acceptable. But I'm just giving you an example of just meaning के हिसाब से एक example दे रहा हूँ. Okay. Nobody is bad here. Everyone are good. All freedom fighters are good because they played a very big role in giving us independence. Okay. Fine. I'm just talking about the ideology, how to write an answer. Okay. सो नेहरू के टाइम पे हम एक बैलेंस करके रखे थे. वी हैड अ वेरी सेफ डिस्टेंस फ्रॉम जिंगोइज्म. सो आवर नेशनलिज्म वाज मोर टिल्टिंग टुवर्ड्स पैट्रियटिज्म. हम ज्यादा हेट भी नहीं करते थे. ही इज वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट हिज आइडियोलॉजी. ओके फाइन. नेक्स्ट फिर नाम के बारे में भी यहाँ पे यू कैन ऐड. नॉन एलिमेंट मूवमेंट के बारे में लिख सकते हो. बैंडन कॉन्फ्रेंस से शुरू हुआ था 1955. फाइनली बेलग्रेड कॉन्फ्रेंस 1961 पे हुआ. प्रेसिडेंट टीटो फ्रॉम यूगोस्लाविया, इजिप्ट के लीडर्स भी थे, नेहरू भी थे. तो ऑल दे ब्रॉट दिस नॉन एलिमेंट मूवमेंट. रिलेशंस विद पाकिस्तान के बारे में एवरीवन नोज इट, यू कैन राइट. सो पाकिस्तान का जो इशू है वो कैसे क्रिएट हुआ था. कश्मीर इशू आज तक इशू है. एंड इन अ वे Jawaharlal Nehru had promised to Sheikh Abdullah. ठीक है. सो दैट वाज द रीजन कि कश्मीर का एक अलग से इशू है. सी कश्मीर इशू हुआ क्या था. Relations with Kashmir deteriorated over the Kashmir issue during 1947-48, immediately after partition. Refusing to acknowledge Kashmir's association to India, Pakistan involved. तो पहला जो चीज हुआ था, ठीक है, उन्होंने एक्नॉलेज नहीं किया कश्मीर सेसेशन टू इंडिया. तो पाकिस्तान started a tribal invasion in India. India फिर resorted to military action supported by the local population led by Sheikh Abdullah to drive out the invaders. But before the task could be accomplished, a complaint was lodged with the Security Council of the United Nations organizations, leading to a ceasefire. तो ये जो चीज हुआ था, this is our history. तो जब प्रॉब्लम सॉल्व चल रहा था हमारा, तो इवन पे चला गया था चीजें, इशू. Ever since then, the LOC has emerged as the de facto border between the two countries, with neither side showing any keenness to alter it by force. Earlier, India had also offered to hold a plebiscite voting in Kashmir, which was, however, withdrawn in 1955 owing to changed situation. Though diplomatic battles have continued since then, the first hot war between India and Pakistan took place in 1965. Indo-Pak war हुआ था. फिर उसके बाद बहुत सारे हुए हैं. So आज के डेट में it continues to define a solution and remains a military flashpoint between the two levels. Indus Water River dispute भी एक इंडिया और पाकिस्तान का प्रॉब्लम है, which was brokered in 1960 by World Bank. आज भी ये न्यूज़ में है, करंट अफेयर्स में है. तो ये इसको अलग से क्वेश्चन आ सकता है, बट अगर एक अम्ब्रेला क्वेश्चन आएगा, यू कैन मेंशन इट इज एन इशू. 1960 पे हुआ था, नेहरू के टाइम पे ही हुआ था ये. ओके फाइन. नेक्स्ट, चाइना रिलेशंस में जब लिखोगे वही चीज, 2 to 3 थिंग्स यू हैव टू राइट. फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल, चाइना रिलेशंस में क्या हुआ. पहले तो पंचल एग्रीमेंट था, ठीक है. पहले यहाँ से पढ़ लेते हैं. चाइना वाज वन ऑफ द फर्स्ट कंट्रीज with which free India established diplomatic relations. ठीक है, one of the first countries. 1949, however, the government led by Chiang Kai-shek was overthrown and replaced by the new government led by Mao Zedong. No need to remember the names. A new government happened to be in 1959 in China, which India soon recognized in December 1949. However, India has consistently tried to establish cordial relations with the People's Republic of China, but the results have been frustrating, particularly on account of China's aggression. ये जो चीज है ना, that was the problem. टिबेट में जो एग्रेशन किया, एंड इन इंडिया इन 1962, एज वेल एज पर्सिस्टेंट ब्रॉडर स्टेलमेंट्स तो होते रहते हैं. तो ये जो चाइनाज एग्रेशन इन टिबेट हुआ था इन 1950, चाइना ऑक्युपाइड टिबेट मच टू इंडियाज बिविल्डरमेंट. Though India had inherited certain rights and obligations over Tibet from the British, तो ब्रिटिश के टाइम पे कुछ rights इंडिया का भी था. India decided not to confront China. This was also India did not. India in a way which again Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel also was not okay with. Patel was not okay with this. But again Nehru, because Nehru was a very pacifist and internationalist approach, he told okay fine. They did not confront China on this issue. And instead concluded the Panchshil Agreement of 1956, which formalized the occupation of. So kahin na kahin we formalized it, we validated it, the occupation of Tibet, and became the guiding principles of Indo-China relations. Five principles were led: Panchil, mutual respect for each other's territorial integrity, mutual non-aggression, mutual non-interference in each other's internal affairs, equality and mutual benefit, peaceful coexistence. Now, again a question can come. Panchil, is it relevant today? See the points and see what was the things which happened then and what is Indo-China relations today. You can write your own answer from each point. Mutual respect for the territorial integrity. Nothing is happening. आज तक भी टेरिटोरियल इशू हो रही है. म्यूचुअल नॉन एग्रेशन, नो. नॉन इंटरफेरेंस इन ईच इंटरनल अफेयर्स, सी पी ई सी. China Pakistan economic corridor, it passes through POK. So in a way you are doing, you are interfering in internal affairs. You are supporting Pakistan, China Pakistan axis. Equality and mutual benefit, no. Dumping, you are dumping products here. Peaceful coexistence, no. It can be linked to this here. Non-aggression, no. There is aggression, so there is no peaceful coexistence. So very easily you can write. So Panchil then and now in the Indo-China relations, it can come as a question. So if you remember these 5 points, very easily you can write the relevance in modern times. It will be very easy answer. But the point is you have to remember these 5 points. Territorial integrity, sovereignty, mutual respect, non-aggression, mutual, non-interference, म्यूचुअल बेनिफिट, इक्वलिटी, वहां पे ट्रेड के साथ लिखोगे, डंपिंग, पीसफुल कोएग्जिस्टेंस. ओके, फाइन. नेक्स्ट, तो रिलेशंस विद चाइना भी नेहरू का एक पार्ट था. सिर्फ पोस्ट इंडिपेंडेंस में नेहरू का ज्यादा रहता है, फिर उसके बाद इट इज वेरी इजी टू कवर. लाइक मोस्टली 50% से ज्यादा जवाहरलाल नेहरू का ही होता है, जो मेन चीज हुआ था. फिर फाइनली एग्रेशन हुआ. तो 1959 में क्या हुआ? फॉलोइंग ए पॉपुलर अपराइजिंग एंड सप्रेशन बाय चाइना, द दलाई लामा फ्लेड फ्रॉम टिबेट एंड सॉट पॉलिटिकल रिफ्यूज. तो दलाई लामा का इस इशू हुआ था, वहीं से इंडो चाइना वॉर हुआ. तो दलाई लामा फ्लेड फ्रॉम टिबेट एंड फॉट पॉलिटिकल रिफ्यूजी फ्रॉम इंडिया. यहाँ पे आके इंडिया अग्रीड टू गिव रिफ्यूजी, मच टू द डिसलाइक ऑफ चाइना, which then occupied 1200 square kilometers of Indian territory in Ladakh. ठीक है. Now the thing is, see, the issue is, see, he fled from where? From Tibet. Now see how two things is like you are supporting two things. One is China annexed Tibet. You are recognizing. ठीक है. And it's the same Dalai Lama who is coming from Tibet, you are giving refugee. You are giving refuge. So two things are different, right? It is ironical. You can't have such a policy, a foreign policy. So that led to a war. अगर इसको हम सॉल्व कर लेते, we should have taken a stand. We should have taken a stand, which Sardar Patel had given this his version. Ki we should have taken a stand during the annexation, because Tibet is also our neighbor, right? So the developments in Tibet prompted China to indulge in repeated border violations. Obviously, it will happen, and extend Chinese claims on the large parts of Indian territory. So China aggression on India happened, which is still a problem now, relevant today also. So you have to connect these points in today's time and write it in the answer, so that your answer will be plain, simple, and yet effective. So in 1962, China launched a full-fledged attack on India, and Chinese armies entered deep into Indian territory in Ladakh. Today, same problem is happening in the west. Arunachal, today, happening. Anything can happen now. Ukraine-Russia war is going on. टिबेट के ऊपर चाइना अटैक करने की न्यूज आ रही है. सो एनीथिंग कैन हैपन नाउ. These things again will be repeated. So history will always repeat. Okay. In the changed format it will come, but the core ideology of history will always repeat. The war ended in a military debacle for India. Why it ended in a military debacle? Because again, Nehru did not support what? Modernization of army. Did not support modernization of army. Leaving China in occupation of a large part of Ladakh territory. Doubts were raised on the efficacy of India's foreign policy, and despite efforts to resolve all outstanding border disputes, the border stalemate was continued. Okay, so we are done with. So we are done with 1963. That is till Nehru. All these policies of Nehru we are done. Now tomorrow I'll take just a small class and I'll cover this Shastri years and Indira Gandhi years till 1991. I'll cover and I'll take 5 to 10 minutes. I'll give you notes or I'll dictate some rough notes on 1991 to 2022. That is the FRBM Act. Economically, what things happen, just you can mention in rough, so that will help you in revising. Okay, ठीक है, thank you.